Hello, this is Neville Gallimore from the Dallas Cowboys, and I want to give a major shout out to Mike Tag. Keep bringing the hype to the Cowboys Nation. We love and appreciate it. Now, can you dig it? Let's get it.
What's up, Cowboy Nation?
What is up, Cowboys Nation? It's Mike Tag, Kelly K9. We apologize, a little technical difficulties on our side, so we got it all worked out. But I don't know, coming off a 40 nothing beatdown of the Giants, I don't know if things can get much better. But when you're talking about having Mr. Cowboy, Bob Lilly, the first ever pick in Cowboys history, Hall of Fame, Ring of Honor, 11-time Pro Bowl, 7-time All-Pro, all-decade team, 60s and 70s, NFL 75th anniversary team. Let's take a deep breath. An NFL 100th anniversary team, and some consider Deacon Jones has been on record to say the greatest defensive tackle in NFL history. Did I cover it all, Kelly?
I mean, that's one heck of a resume right there, Cowboys Nation. And for those of you that don't know, some of the younger generation that tunes into the show to get up on this history, like Mike said, the first ever Dallas Cowboys draft pick, the first ever. So what better way to start off your franchise than to draft the guy who goes on to be named Mr. Cowboy and Bob Lilly? College Hall of Fame, NFL Hall of Fame. Every checklist that you can get, and you can check down the list. This man has accomplished that. So couldn't be more excited to get this man in here and talk some football and just, hear some of the stories. And it's good. You're in for a treat, Cowboys Nation. So thanks for tuning in, and I'm ready to get this thing going.
Let's not wait any longer. We waited long enough. Mr. Bob Lilly, how are you doing today, sir?
Well, I'm doing good. So far, so good. That's what the old guys tell each other every time we're around each other is that we ask each other how we're doing, and we all say, well, we're doing good.
That's what my dad says. I talk to my dad in the morning. Every morning we have our morning phone call, and if I don't answer, he'll yell at me. He'll say, one day you want that call. So I understand but it is such an honor to have you in. You see, I've got the Cowboys cave. I'm a huge Cowboys fan historian, and you are well decorated all throughout the cave. So your presence is well felt in here. So we want to really first thank you for taking the time to come in. We've got a great audience, and like I said, we love talking the history of the Cowboys to kind of educate, this generation. It wasn't like we're dealing with now a long drought. There was a time when the Cowboys were so dominant, and you were the beginning of that. And just looking back to being the first Cowboy draft pick, what was your feeling? Was it a big honor? You were in TCU, so you're in Texas. What was your thoughts of coming to a new franchise in the Cowboys?
Well, it was my senior year at TCU was a good year for me. Our team didn't do too well, but we only allowed, I think, 8 points. We got beat by Texas 3-2 and 7-6 by SMU, and I don't remember all of them, but anyway. I did make All-American that year, and pardon me. Anyway, the Cowboys. I played in the Shrine game in San Francisco, and the East-West game, and the Buffalo game. I don't even know the Hula Bowl. I know that was one of them. And anyway, the scouts, Gil Brandt, we went to his funeral yesterday, and. Shut that down. Anyway, we went to Gil's funeral yesterday, and it brought back a lot of memories of Gil was always there, and Gil always, and I never forget, everybody was trying, the AFL had just come into the league in 1960. And so the Cowboys didn't have a draft. They threw a team up in Dallas, and they had to pick from pools. from other teams. And so anyway, this was their first draft, and there was a man named E.J. Hollab who made All-American at Tech, center, middle linebacker, and myself, we made All-American, and the other team that came to Dallas was the Dallas Texans. Like that was 1960. In 61, late 60, they had the draft, and I was drafted number 1 by the Cowboys, and E.J. Hollab was drafted number 2 by the Cowboys, and E.J. was drafted number 1 by the Texans, and I was drafted number 1 by the Texans. I was drafted number 2. And so I asked my coach, I said, Coach, I don't know what to do. I said, I'm a Texas boy. I don't live but 120 miles from here. And that was Fort Worth, of course.
Yeah.
And he said, well, he'd been coaching for like 40 years, but he said, if I were you, he said, it just depends. If the money's pretty much the same, which it was, very little back then. But anyway, he said, I think I might go with NFL. And because he says, we've had 2 other leagues have tried to form and have come to Dallas and not made it. And he said, but the Hunts are a very fine family. He was from East Texas as well as the Hunt family, and he said they're both good families. And he said the Murksons, but he said I do think if you want to stay around here and be around TCU and be around your friends down here, I think I would go with the NFL. And so I did, and they started off great. I mean, better than we did, but that was a new league. And anyway, I'll never forget, I used to hang out with the guys after practice. They would practice one field and we would be at 5 miles apart. And we'd meet at a hamburger joint and have a beer and a hamburger and talk. And I would go because the Cowboys were almost all of them were older than me. They were picks from other teams that were putting up 5 or 6 guys for the Cowboys to choose 2 of them. And so anyway, it was the Texans were pretty much Southwest Conference and people I'd played against or knew or something. And so and sure enough, neither of us did real well, but they went on to Kansas City and became the Chiefs. And so there I was at home, and I said, Coach Martin was right. I got to stay home, and
we're glad you did.
My families and all that. But anyway, it was interesting because we played in the playoffs in the 66, 65, 66 in that era, and we would win one championship in our league, but then we would lose to go to the first Super Bowl 1966.
Yeah.
So I went to the Pro Bowl. They brought us out a week early of the Super Bowl, and we practiced all that week, but we got to go to the first Super Bowl, and it was Kansas City. And I'm thinking, there's my old buddies out there that I used burgers with, and they're playing in a Super Bowl, and we didn't make it. And but eventually, it all worked out. We got there, and it seemed like a long, hard road, but it was. I had a blast with the Cowboys. Coach Landry was a wonderful coach, and had great teammates. And just like yesterday, I was at 2 events for fundraising last night, and yesterday was a Cowboy event, and I did see a bunch of my old teammates, and we are getting old.
But the thing I say, it's amazing is the stories that you have, and like I said, we had Larry Cole on, we've had Craig Morton on, some of your teammates, Charlie Waters, and just the stories are just it seemed like such a bond with America's team and you guys playing together, and you guys started, a lot of the core of you started, at the bottom, and it was funny. I have this Sports Illustrated 1963 that you signed for me years ago, and it had Lee Falcon, the tight end, and it has Leroy Jordan on it. And the headline was Dallas defense can win the East. And I was like, geez, 1963, let me look it up. And you guys are 4-10. So even then, the media was overhyping our Cowboys and already having them setting up to win Super Bowls and would give us a chance to get going.
Well, it took us a while to get there, but it was slow and painful. But Coach Landry really was a great coach, and he really knew football extremely well, and he wasn't a person that was very loud spoken, but he was a person who would. We dreaded every Monday when we went to the practice field and watched our game film, because they had stayed up all night grading us. And the individual coaches, like Ernie Stoutner was my coach for much of my career, and he would grade us, and then Coach Landry would go over all that and the film and make any changes he wanted. And so every mistake we made was pointed out in front of all of my teammates, for me or anybody else. And that's the one thing we didn't like, but it's probably the one thing that made us all a lot better.
Yeah.
And, but Coach was really a genteel, brilliant coach, and he didn't do things quickly. I don't think we had the money really back then to go out and get whoever we wanted. But anyway, we got the right quarterbacks. Meredith was a great quarterback to start. We had Eddie LeBaron my first year.
Eddie LeBaron, yeah.
And Eddie was a great guy and a good quarterback, but we didn't have much of a team. But then the next year, he and Meredith alternated plays. They would go out. Eddie would come out and Don would go in and so forth. And then the next year they let Don start, and Eddie was a backup. And then the next year Eddie left. But Eddie and I became dear friends. And Don did a great job. And then we had Craig Martin for a few years. Craig was a good quarterback, but he did get his knees hurt and was handicapped a little bit with that. And then of course Roger came in and took Craig's place and did a great job. By then we had a good sound defense and a pretty good offensive line by that time.
Yeah.
And so we did go to Super Bowl V, and then went to Super Bowl VI, and we were in the playoffs to go to 2 or 3 other Super Bowls, but we didn't make it. And it's I don't know. It's just it's almost like one play when you get up to that level, one bad play and you're out. And we seem to do that often. Make one bad play or miss one, a punt go awry or a field goal we miss or something like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was wonderful, and I loved my teammates, and it was a great time for me.
Well, you talk about that year, the alternating and the quarterbacks. You bring up the Craig Morton. So in '71, the year you guys won the Super Bowl, Coach Landry had Craig Morton and Staubach switching back and forth, and there was even a game where they were alternating even every other plays. And then kind of how the story had went was that the team was kind of divided on this, and then went to Coach Landry and said that there needed to be just one guy, and that was the guy that needed to make a decision one way or another. So it goes with Staubach. You guys run the table and don't lose another game all the way through and end up beating the Dolphins in the Super Bowl. So question I had for you with that was, do you think that that you guys would have won the Super Bowl had that change not been made and Landry went with Staubach as the full-time starting quarterback that year?
I don't think we would have gone to the Super Bowl if we had kept alternating quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. It was very confusing for the offensive, the wide receivers, because the quarterbacks deliver the ball differently. And I think we had to make a choice, one or the other. I think Craig probably could have taken us to the Super Bowl as well. But they named Roger, and he was an upcoming star. And Roger was already there. He was very mature. He'd been in the service for several years, and he'd been with the Cowboys a few years at that time, or 2 or 3 years. And anyway, he was a great leader, and I think Coach Landry. I don't know that he knew. He was looking at Craig's experience, and Roger had not had that much experience. But Roger was a great athlete. Craig had, like I said, he had some knee problems, and I think Roger was probably a better leader for our offensive team because of his, being in the military for 4 years and going through the academy. And Roger did a great job, and he went on to continue to do a good job. Craig was a good quarterback, and I think Craig went on to Denver and did a pretty good job there.
Yeah.
And he's a very nice person, and I think the world of him. But I saw Roger yesterday. In fact, it was last night. And anyway, he's still. I think he's quit having his little below the hips game where they tap each other on the butt or something. He used to have that every year with old timers. Now the old timers are too old to do it.
Talking about some of the past, obviously, Gil Brandt, passed away recently, Cowboy legend. And just the thing I remember about Gil Brandt is listening to him, his memory of players. You would ask him, you'd mention a player and he would tell you what school they went to, where they grew up. And he was doing this on Sirius XM in his 80s. Yeah. And he was an innovator. And I think a lot of people obviously got recognized by the Hall of Fame, which was great. But, what did he bring? Any stories or anything unique that you could share on Gil Brandt as a person or just the importance that he had with the Cowboys as a franchise?
Well, Gil was way ahead of the times when he came to the Cowboys. He was already into the computers, and he had a kind of an interesting background of being a baby photographer and a grocery sacker when he was growing up, and but he loved football, and he had a sixth sense about people, about the athletes. And I don't know how much he studied, like he probably spent hours watching a particular person, but Gil was brilliant. Gil was the one who, I played in the Shrine game in California, and all this was before I hadn't been drafted. Mm-hmm. They were the AFL and NFL were both trying to sign all the players out there because we hadn't been drafted yet. And so anyway, I never forget, Gil took me out to dinner, and I think EJ was with us. And the Cowboys, I think, weren't overfunded. Clint Murchison was a very wealthy man, but they didn't really have a lot of funds. They hadn't really done a lot. They'd only played one game, and I'm sure they didn't make a lot of money that year. And I remember Gil in the restaurant in San Francisco. He bought our dinner, and then he called me over and he said, would you please sign a contract if we're able to draft you? And I said, I don't think so. I don't know. I don't have a lawyer. I didn't even know hardly what a lawyer was then. But where I grew up in Dartmouth, we didn't have a lawyer. But anyway, he started peeling off some bills, like 20s and so forth, and he said, well, I'd like to get you to sign because we're going to try to draft you. And I said, anyway, he got down. He had a bankroll about that big, but when he got about a third of the way through it, it was $1 bill.
The old big bill, little bill.
But I'd already told him. I'd already said, Gil, I'm not signing anything because I don't know what's going to happen, and I don't know. And I said, my coach has told me what his opinion was, and I'm pretty sure if y'all draft me, I'm going to be signing with the Cowboys. But anyway, my buddies signed with the Texans, and I signed with the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you've had you had a long and storied career with the Cowboys, but what I thought was pretty amazing about you was that you're on both sides of the spectrum. Here you got, the first Super Bowl you play in, that Super Bowl 5 is a loss to the Colts, and there's an iconic moment where you throw your helmet. And I think on the NFL films that somebody said they never saw somebody throw a helmet as far as you threw that helmet. Obviously that's out of frustration, but then, the following year, you guys come back and you guys just throttle the Dolphins and just, absolutely put a beat down on them. So talk a little bit about what that's like to experience both sides. I mean, you're playing at the highest level for, in your sport, for playing for it all, and you experience the loss, but then the next year you kind of overcome that and get to experience what it feels like to bust through and hoist that Lombardi trophy.
Well, in Super Bowl 5, of course, we played the Colts, and I think Joe Namath we were in Florida. Our hotel wasn't far from Broadway Joe's,
Mm-hmm.
Joe Namath's restaurant and bar, and so we would go over there and eat, and Joe would come over and visit with us, and Leroy was, pumping Joe about Baltimore and what he thought and so forth and so on. And so anyway, we didn't learn anything. I mean, we probably learned a little, but you got to be out there playing to learn something.
Yeah.
But anyway, we were really, really keyed up, and we went out, and the first play that we made was, or they made was, we threw a pass, which was tipped by a Baltimore receiver, and it went up, and they thought Mel Renfro tipped it next, but Mel was about 10 yards away, and Mackey caught it and ran it for a touchdown. That was the first one. Then at the end of the game, we were ahead, and we fumbled the ball on the 1 foot line going in to score. We would be ahead 13 points then. And there was a fumble between Craig and Dave Manders, but Dave Manders got up with the ball, and they gave it to Baltimore.
Oh my God.
And so it hurt a lot to think that we really had a good defensive day, and we had a pretty good offensive day once we got going. But to lose that one, and so after that game was over, we got in the dressing room, locker room, and we all banded together and said, we are going to start working out next week, and we're going to win the next Super Bowl. And we did. We started working out. We started lifting weights. We started running. We started doing practicing defense, offense on our own. And we go into Super Bowl 6, and we're playing a team that was very good. I'll tell you that. The Dolphins. And we watched them. We had about 6 film that we watched, and they ran over everybody. I mean, they were absolutely. It was like Zonka
and Morris,
and
right?
And Mercury Morris were running over all the people, and I was really kind of enamored because in college the run was the big thing and the pass was secondary. And with Coach Landry, I think the run was big, but then we knew we had to go to the pass. But the Dolphins they weren't much of a passing. We didn't see a lot. We didn't know exactly. They had Warfield. It was great. We had played against him at Cleveland. And anyway, but we had watched so much film and knew pretty much exactly when they did this or that, what they were going to do. And so we were very prepared defensively and offensively. And I was really amazed or stunned after the game when we were 24-3,
Yeah.
because the next year the Dolphins went 17-0.
Yeah.
But they had a great team. I mean, they had a great team that year, and I don't know whether it was our dedication all off season and preparation, but we had a good day. And I know, I remember Cornell Green making one of the best plays I've ever seen. Mel Renfro was designated to cover Warfield.
Mhm.
And Warfield, he got a little bit ahead of Mel on one down and in route, and he was almost to the goal line. And Cornell Green saw this prior to that, but Cornell was about 6'5" and 230-pound strong safety, but basketball player in college, but a great strong safety in pro football.
Yeah.
He ran, and he kind of tripped a little bit, and then when he got almost there, he jumped probably 5 feet off the ground and tipped the ball, and it went over Warfield's hands. That was just before halftime. And if Warfield had been able to catch that ball, we would have, we wouldn't have been we were ahead of them a little bit at halftime. And then at the second half, we had some great plays by Hallie and Roger and Ditchgood and all these guys.
And yourself, that 29-yard sack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still an all-time NFL record.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, but
Yeah, it still is.
anyway,
it
was fun. I had Larry Cole helping me.
Yeah, Larry Cole. We talked about it when he was on the show, and that was one of his big
George
memories.
Andre was playing defensive end on my right, and we had a stunt on that play. And I went out, and my guard came with me, and I was able to grab the tackle. And they both were trying to get to George, so they let me go, and I was free. And it's one of those things that doesn't happen very often.
No. And the picture I have up, if you maybe you can't see it, is you and the cigar in the locker room, and I just think that's one of those iconic pictures.
Absolutely.
Of just winning it all, and you could just see the excitement.
Well,
in the photo.
there's a story behind that cigar.
What's the story?
Let's hear that.
Well, I had a friend. He was a business partner, older man, and he was from Tyler, and he smoked cigars. I didn't smoke anything, but he got me before the game. He gave me a Havana Cuba cigar in a glass deal, and it was about that long. And so I took it with me down there. I told him I would light it up, but I would not smoke it. But anyway, I took it to the Super Bowl V, and we didn't win. So I put it back in the glass. I didn't ever take it out of the glass. I brought it back home, put it in the freezer. And the next year when we went back, I got the cigar and took it with me. And after we won, I got it out, and it was so dry that it was kind of crumbling, and I had to go into the lavatory and put water on it. And then I had to borrow a Zippo lighter, and finally got it smoking where it was red. And that's the picture they do. And whenever I get these pictures, I get them from fans that send these 8x10s, and there I am with that cigar. And so I sign my name and all that down here big, and on that I get a smaller pen and I say Super Bowl VI cigar. I print it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is hilarious. That's a good thing though. You held it for the right moment and then used it at the right moment, even if you had to do some repairs.
That's right. It wasn't smokable the second year.
Yeah, I imagine not.
But it did smoke. It did make some smoke. So that was
good. That's a good one.
But talking about Landry, I know Kelly, you wanted to ask a question on Landry.
Oh yeah, well, I know that Tom Landry. It's just first of all, I named my son. My son is Troy Landry, so I got to have Troy after Troy Aikman and Landry after Tom Landry. So I'm a big fan of Landry. He was a innovator of the game and obviously one of the great coaches. He had a quote though that I saw on on you. He had a quote, and he had talked about, it said, "Another Lilly will not come along in my time." High praises for a guy who coached, tons of legends along the way, and you among those. So when it comes to that and generational players, I'm kind of gonna tie you in with a former guy. I know you're still a Cowboys. Whenever they have Ring of Honor, you're always there for those. So obviously you've seen a guy like Micah Parsons. You obviously a generational talent, once in a lifetime talent. Do you see that kind of generational talent in a guy like Micah Parsons?
I do. Yeah, I see it. I mean, he's got it. No doubt about it. He's got to. It's not just your athletic ability or your strength or your speed. It's a picture that you have in your mind. It's almost like a 3D movie where where like when I was up on the ball, I could tell if the guard if he was 6 inches from the center, he was gonna block me, or they were gonna double team me. I looked at the pressure on their fingernails. If they were red, I knew they were gonna zone block. If they were off the ball just a little bit, they were gonna pull, or it was a pass. And I could tell if it was gonna be a pass because they were balanced. If it was gonna be a pull, they had one leg a little bit behind the other. Or if they were close to the tackle and they were on the line of scrimmage, they were going to double team me, and they were going to try to block George with the opposite guard. But these are things that I looked at them. I looked at the position. I did all this immediately, and I looked them right in the face. I could see. Then my vision was so good, I could see their whiskers, and I could see their eyes. And if they were looking sideways or something like that, that told me they were looking to see who was here, if we were going to do something different, or if they looked the other way. He was looking to see if he could get off and pull. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, I knew pretty much what they were going to do when I lined up, and so they started doing the quick counts a lot more, but it didn't make a whole lot of difference because they still lined up the way they were going to line up.
Yep. Now, and talking with Parsons in this defense, so the Cowboys, I know you follow the Cowboys, closely, and the struggles, right? So, I think of the struggles that you've had, in the 60s, those teams and the next year's champions and all that. And then you look at this Cowboys team and it's always high praise. It's always they're going to get to the Super Bowl. As fans, we get a lot of heat from the other teams because we always say this is our year. And it's been a long drought, unfortunate drought for the Cowboys. I never thought I would see that. But this team, you see the adversity they've faced the last few years. It seems like they just get closer and closer. When you look at this team and Dak as a leader and obviously Parsons on the defense and what this defense has created, if you watch the game Monday night, it was just an unbelievable performance. Yeah. How do you feel about this team this season? Are you getting maybe a kind of a feeling that this team could be special?
Yeah, I am after the Giant game.
Yeah.
Of course, I've got to watch them a little longer, but there's no doubt about Micah Parsons.
Yeah.
And they've got a good, solid defense, it looks to me like. That's just my opinion right now. I think they're going to have probably one of the better defenses they've had in a long time. And, the secondary is good. The linebackers are good. They got some good front four now. Our offensive line is it's a little bit of a question mark because we got people that have been hurt and they could be hurt. And I think if they can escape some injuries on the offensive line, we're going to have a really good offensive team as well. But you really have to have a good offensive line because the defenses on all the teams are getting so much better. And Dak is fine. I think he's mature and he's seasoned, and he looked really, to me, like he knew it. He saw the field and knew what was going on really well this last week.
Yeah.
And of course we'll see how some of the younger players work out, but I think they're going to be fine.
Yeah.
And I'm looking for a really good season from the Cowboys.
Oh, we are too. We're going to be there next week for the home opener. Hopefully, it's going to be a great one. But they talk about the defense, and Micah said the doomsday defense, and when you say that, that means a lot. I mean, you're you were the original doomsday defense,
That'll
obviously.
be Doomsday 3.
George and all them. So
Doomsday 3.
Doomsday 3.
Yeah, we had Doomsday 1, and then
Yep.
Randy White's era was Doomsday 2, and this will be Doomsday 3.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll take
Isn't
it.
it interesting that I'm sorry, Kelly, go ahead.
No, I said I'll take it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Me too, Kevin.
We had Larry Cole on, and I was just amazed at the amount of decades he played in the 60s, 70s, and into the 80s, 3 different decades. So he technically was on Doomsday 1 and 2, right?
He was, yes.
Yeah,
In fact, he played. Larry was really a good, solid football player, and he played left defensive end most of the time while he was there. During my career, but he could have played. I knew he could play tackle really well because he had that balance and the strength, and they did. I think later they moved him into tackle. He played tackle for quite a while, and he played it well.
Yeah.
But Larry was a good football player. He was a good, solid pass rusher. He was great against the run, and smart as a whip, and great guy, great teammate. Just love him. And it was like at one time there was Jethro Pugh was right beside him, and of course Jethro got sick, and we had some changes. But anyway, we had mainly with Lilly, Willie Towns, Jethro, and George for a long time. Then was Larry Cole.
Yeah.
And Larry was there for, I think, 13 years or 14 years.
Yeah, he had a long career with the Cowboys.
He did have.
And and you're looking at that defensive line, and I kind of like look at our defensive line, today's team, and it just seems like the depth is there and going in waves.
I think it is. I just haven't seen enough of them. They didn't play during preseason like we used to have to play.
Yeah.
But just from that one game where they all were out there.
Yeah.
But I think I saw a lot of good things during preseason, but you don't ever really know until you get into the year. And everybody's pretty serious. They're real serious once you get into the league season.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Now, do you ever wonder how your game would translate in today's game? Because it's a debate that goes on amongst sports. This era would be better than this era. These guys couldn't compete with these. But I mean, just the way that you talked about, looking at the whites on the fingers, all the little minute details that you talk about knowing. I mean, that's something that is just, it's instilled in a guy. Greatness, I feel, is instilled in players. I feel you would be great in any era you played on. But I mean, I know, you talked about, you meeting up with the guys, you guys are, having burgers and beers. And, I even heard a story that you didn't even start lifting weights until later on in your, in your career. You just had this natural strength about you. Nowadays, it's like down to a science. These guys got, chefs that are watching everything they put in their bodies. It's, the technology has come a long way, but I feel like if a player like you was in today's game, you would have, those advancements available to yourself. So had you ever think about how your game would translate in today's game, and what are the differences that you see between this game and when you played?
Well, I did grow up in a farming community, and I started hauling hay at the age of 8, and I started throwing hay up into the loft at the age of about 11.
Oh, wow.
And I was driving tractors and bulldozers, and then during college I went out in the summers and I worked in the oil field hauling drilling pipe, which weighed a whole lot, like 300 pounds.
Yep.
Putting that on the trailer, but it's like my dad. My dad didn't, he was a mechanic. He had his own shop, and when I was a little boy, about 7 or 8 years old, there was a flathead V8 pickup that he was working on, and his winch broke in his shop. So he undid the motor and he picked it up, bent over and picked it up and carried it over and put it down. And I went over there and I was going to shake it and it wouldn't shake, but it weighed about 600 pounds. And
Wow.
so I was lifting the back end of Volkswagens and helping people change their tire and Renaults when I was in high school and college, both. And so strength, I never thought about strength. I never even had any problem with that at all. But if I had been on the weight program, I might have been even stronger. I don't know.
that might have been pretty scary to see if you're an offensive lineman with a guy in a weight program.
I'll tell you this story. This is a funny story that very few people know of except some players. But Coach Landry had a rigid policy of being overweight. 1 pound overweight was $50.
Wow.
If you were 1 pound overweight the next week, it was 100. If you were 2 pounds the next week, it was 400. And so George Andre was my roommate and defensive end right beside me. And the scales we had to weigh them were cotton scales. That's what I call them. They look just like the ones in Throckmorton where they put the bales of cotton on there to weigh them. They had balances and all this stuff. And so I had watched my dad tune them. And so George and we took the back off of it because Coach Landry wanted us to be. George was 6'6", I was 6'5.5", and he wanted us to weigh 255 pounds. And we were starting to play guys that were 270 or 80 pounds. So I said, George, we got to do something about this. And because we had to weigh in every week. We never knew what day it was. So we took that off and we started taping money, and then we would set it and where it would balance, and we'd get up there and we like it took 30 cents to gain 9.5 pounds. and it was taped. In 1988, I went to training camp, and that was Randy White's last year. And that was the kid they got from Nebraska was.
Oh, it was Danny Noonan.
Danny Noonan. Yeah. Danny was there, and he was going to be the guy to take Randy's place. But anyway, after we got through, I knew Randy already. I said, Randy, I wonder if the old scales are still here, because it was Thousand Oaks. I was still Thousand Oaks where we went.
Mm-hmm.
And they took the scales out there and they brought them back home. In other words, the same scales. We had almost everything that we had at home. We took to training camp. And I went back and I said, Randy, these are the same scales that we had. And I said, let's lift this thing up and see if that. And so we lifted up. Sure enough, that brown tape was still covering up 30 cents. I said, how much do you weigh, Randy? And he said, I think they had him at 258 or 255 or something. I said, you weigh 265. I said, you got 10 pounds added. So George Andre was, instead of having to play at 255, he was 265. And Coach Landry let me get up at 268. So I was 268, but I gained 9 pounds, 9.5 pounds. So I got stronger as we went along.
Wow.
And none of the guys, we didn't tell anybody. And everybody was saying, I'm losing weight.
That's an awesome. I mean, that's just the beauty. I just love that, the era of football and what you guys had. And Tex Schramm. So I just share a quick story, and then we can wrap it up in a few minutes. But Tex Schramm, I remember as a kid, and I used to write letters to play. I wrote to Tom Landry, got an autograph, and Randy White, had Too Tall Jones 2 under set in that era. And I wrote to Tex Schramm a little later, and he had said that he liked the picture I sent him, and he put a note back. He said, please call me. And he put his home phone number. And so I was like a teenager. So I called him, and sure enough, it was Tex Schramm. And he's like, man, I've never seen this photo. Where did you get it? And I kind of said, well, it was at a sports card thing, and they had pictures, and I just thought it'd be cool to get it signed. So and we talked for like 30 or 40 minutes about Tom Landry. It was after Tom Landry was let go from the Cowboys, so just kind of how that went down. And he was just such a nice guy. Now I heard he was pretty tough. I heard he was a shrewd business guy. But any Tex Schramm stories that you might have, just a quick one to share?
Yeah, I got a real good one. I'll share it. It wasn't with me, but it was with Roger. And Roger had been trying to negotiate a new contract, and Tex would put him off and put him off and put him off. And we were on Central Expressway in Dallas, Cowboy building, and it had ledges. Every floor had a ledge outside about this big. Well, Tex was up on top in the corner. Roger went up, climbed up on the roof, got on that ledge, walked around, and knocked on the window because Tex said he was busy, and he was on the phone. And Tex said, come on in, and I think they got a contract settled right then. But anyway, Tex, he was very frugal because I don't know, I heard rumors, but I don't know that when they sold the Cowboys, they had built a stadium and it was financially, somebody might have been in trouble. I don't know.
Yeah.
We never really knew, and I don't know yet, but we were paid less. I went to several Pro Bowls, and I would always talk to the other players and find out what they were making, and they were always making, most of them were making a lot more than we were.
Yeah.
But, at different positions, of course, but
Crazy.
I think
anyway.
Dwayne Thomas, wasn't that one of his big issues?
Yeah, well, I think so. He talked to Jim Brown after the game, and I don't think Jim was a great guy. Jim would never have asked him to or told him anything bad.
Yeah.
But I think what Jim told him was just stay there, and your opportunity will come. And he said, if it doesn't, don't just play your contract out, which was only a couple of years. And he said, you'll be able to go somewhere else, which he did. But, I don't think that was too bad because he had a lot of ability. I mean,
Yeah.
he really did. But I don't know that the Cowboys had the money at that particular time to pay everybody what they wanted.
Yeah.
And the TV contracts kept getting bigger, and they were obviously able to. Now they're paying them. I think they ran our whole team operation $30 million a year.
Wow.
That was the whole thing back when I was playing.
I saw something that Joe Burrow signed that big contract. He's getting paid $40,000 per pass attempt.
Yeah.
Is what it comes out to. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I heard that. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, I hope they do good things with their money. Is what I hope.
Yeah.
I don't mind anybody making money. I just hope that they're benevolent. And
Yeah.
Now, real quick, I just want to touch on something that I saw some that one of the things that you're big into is photography. You've got a photography. You actually have a book, Bob Lilly Reflections, and I've seen some of the photos that you've taken. Some pretty incredible photos. Just tell us a little bit? Obviously, it's a big passion of yours. How did you get into that?
I got into it with my senior year in college. One of the All-American teams was Kodak All-American team, and I can't remember what they called it, but anyway, it was Kodak. And we went up and we were wined and dined, and we were on TV for a little. At that time, you played both ways. So there were 11 football players, and generally one extra one, maybe a backup quarterback, or maybe a starting quarterback that would have been a backup, and then maybe a kicker. But you only had about 13 guys that made all the All-American teams. And so anyway, we were at the Bowery, and there was a restaurant. I can't remember the name of it, but we had dinner there with the Kodak people, and they gave us a box about so big, and it had a Motormatic camera, which I've got over my mantle, and they gave us 100 rolls of black and white and 100 rolls of color and prepaid mailers. So all I had to do was take the pictures and put them in a little sack. It was already paid for. Put it in the post office there at TCU, and well, that was the first ones I made. Then when I went with Cowboys, I did the same. But then I bought me a Leica camera, and then later I bought a Hasselblad, and I bought a Nikon, and I bought a 4x5.
Wow.
And I learned to, I found out, I read Ansel Adams books and several of the photographers of the time to find out where to go to get the good picture. And then you had to, when you got there, it's kind of like playing defense. You got to look at their fingernails, and you got to look at this, and you got to see what the conditions are, and you got to know what time to get out there. So you ask people what time you should be out there in the morning, 5 o'clock or 4:30 or 6 o'clock, and sometimes they tell you, well, it depends on the clouds. And it was a learning thing, but it was a natural thing, and I did it. I still do it a little bit. In fact, my printer's right here. I don't think you can see. You probably can see it.
I can hear it.
This is the printer I use now. It only does 16 by 20s, but I used to have a big one that did 30 by 40s.
Wow.
And anyway, I still take pictures. I don't do as much. I used to have a lot of buddies that I traveled with, and we'd go out to Arizona, Utah, go up to all these the arches, Canyon de Chelly, the Monument Valleys, all over, and we knew exactly what time to be out there, how far we had to walk, and all that.
Yeah.
And so we took some really good pictures, and
that's awesome.
I enjoyed it. It was a great hobby.
Yeah, I remember seeing the one picture of you. They were showing a few different things, and some of the stuff you took in the locker room was pretty good.
Yeah.
Had a couple questions. We'll wrap it up. We appreciate your time so much, but a couple of the fans so many have showed up, but just asked a couple maybe quick questions. Is one had asked, who did you have a favorite all time teammate? I know that's so hard to pick one, but was there one that was your favorite or you were closest to during your time with the Cowboys?
Well, of course, George Andre played 11 years with me, and we were roommates 11 years, and so we were very close. But Leroy Jordan was very close. I was very close to Jethro and Larry Cole when Larry came. I mean, we all were pretty close. But I would say Leroy lived nearby. Chuck Howley lived nearby. Chuck had family. Leroy did. We all lived in kind of the same neighborhood. George did. Tony Liscio. And we hung out together because we lived within about 4 blocks of each other.
Yeah, Scott Halley was on our show, and he said you guys had it was quite a pickup game of football for the kids if they wanted.
Yeah, well, Dan Reeves lived right in the middle of us, and Dave Manders was our center. He lived there. We had about 7 or 8, and it was called Lake Highlands, and so that was that was something you could do every evening. I mean, cook out.
Yeah.
Or talk, visit, cook out, drink beer, whatever, drink Cokes.
Yeah.
And we were very, very close, yeah. And our team was close.
That's what you could really tell. I mean, you sense that, and from the other players that we've interviewed from your era, you guys just had you just had that kind of bond and friendship like you said, you still see a lot of your teammates today, and that's just something that's pretty special, I think.
It is. Yes, you're right about that. Especially not too many of them left.
Yeah. No.
I mean, not as many as I'd like.
Yeah. No, absolutely. But thankful for every day. And one other question we had was from Doug was, did you have a all-time like a O lineman that was your nemesis? Was there someone you just whether it was a dirty player or just someone that kind of played you tough that you recall?
Well, I think most of them. Yeah, I broke in against Jim, Baltimore, big guy, about 300 pounds, Jim Parker, and that's when I learned that I better get quicker, faster, and smarter. And I was a rookie when we played them the first time, and so my word to all aspiring young football players is the number one thing is quickness and agility, and then strength is third. But if you're we were very lucky. We had a racquetball, two racquetball courts or handball, either one, next to our practice field. And so every day we would go in. There's about 4 or 5 of us. We'd drink Gatorade after practice, and we'd put on our shorts and tennis shoes and go out there and play for about an hour of racquetball. And then Ernie Stoutner was our coach, and we talked about the ropes, putting the ropes up. And what they did is they started them out about this tall, and you would run straight ahead, and then you crisscross, and then you hop. And anyway, he just incorporated a whole lot of agility drills. And I don't think we hardly missed any games. I mean, it was like your mind. If you do all this stuff and you like racquetball, you've got to watch that ball, but you've also got to watch the guy in front of you. You got to watch the wall.
Yeah.
But you've got to. It's kind of like playing football. You got to watch all this stuff, and you see it, and you got to hit the ball this far off the ground. And in football, it's like I'll never forget a Pro Bowl that I played in. Jim Otto was a center. It was AFC, and I was playing a tackle. And I got by my guy, and I saw this streak, and I jumped. And otherwise, he would have torn my knee up. I mean, he wasn't doing it on purpose, but he was just going to stop me.
Yeah.
And I jumped right over him and made a play. And I'm thinking, I've remembered that's one play I've never forgotten.
Wow.
Where I could have been hurt, but just because I had done all this agility work, and I would recommend all these young players and current players to spend a lot, just as much time playing something like racquetball and running the ropes and doing agility drills as you do lifting weights.
Yeah. And I think
with agility, you can throw people around like a hay bale.
Yeah.
I mean, it's balance.
Yeah.
And, you need the power when you're getting zone locked. That's when you really got to be big and strong. But during my era, I was about as big as anybody that I played against, except for Jim Parker.
I think I saw one more question, Kelly, by Steve. Did you see that one? The Tom Landry.
I didn't say.
The question was Tom Landry. There was always this aura of Texas Stadium, and I'm thankful I got to go see it. But the hole in the roof was, there was always so God could watch his favorite football team play. Did you believe all that?
No, I never heard him say anything about it. But it could have been, but he was a very strong Christian, and he was a good mentor for all of us. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
No.
Well, you know what? One more from me before we kind of wrap this up and let you get out of here. First of all, I've appreciated some of the stories we got here today, man. I'm just very thankful for your time and everything that you did for this Cowboys organization. But of all the people that are in the Ring of Honor, all the people that are in the Ring of Honor, Hall of Fame, Hall of Fame guys. There's one guy that we always ask about that's not in that Ring of Honor that Cowboys Nation seems to, want to know. Do you have any thoughts about Jimmy Johnson and him not being in the Ring of Honor yet?
Yeah, I do. I have a lot of questions about that. He did a great job. He knew the talent that was coming up, and he was a great coach. And I'm so sorry that they they didn't get along, although they were friends in college. In fact, I think both of them were playing maybe sophomores and freshmen when I was at TCU, when Arkansas was in the Southwest Conference.
Yeah.
And we played against them, and I'm pretty sure Jerry Jones was. They played guard. They would have been playing over me, but I don't think they were starting at that time. I think they were like sophomores or freshmen. And but he was a great coach, and he knew the talent. Of course, he was a head coach in college, so he was scouting all the time. I mean, I'm sure he helped the scouts the Cowboys had in picking the players that they picked, and he didn't put up nonsense either. I mean, very tough guy, and I have a lot of respect for him.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm hoping they somehow, they mend the fences because he deserves it. I was there when he got his Hall of Fame ring, and the crowd just it was so electric seeing him back in Dallas and getting it. And one last thing, I just was curious on your charity. I've read a lot that you're with, you did a lot with Shriners Hospital. Is that something that you're still close with?
Yeah, we do. I'm not as active at this point as I was, but yeah, I still just made a contribution today, and we had some get together with them recently, and they are very good.
Yeah.
Very
So I
good.
just want to at least put it out there for everyone, and we've had a great audience. You always look for some charities and some things to donate to, especially during the holidays. Shriners is a great charity. I've done some stuff with them with my company, so definitely wanted to put that out there. But Mr. Lilly, I can't tell you, I'm a huge Cowboys fan, and you made my dreams come true. I'm gonna go. I don't know if I'm going to be able to sleep tonight. I'm going to be so excited.
You will.
No,
Probably put you to sleep.
No, I just love the history, and I soak it up, and I know Kelly does too, and a lot of Cowboys fans, and it's just we have so much history with the Cowboys organization and great players, Hall of Fame players, and more importantly, just great people. And I know you're one of them. You do a lot of stuff in the public and public appearances and signings, and you interact with the fans so much. So just as a fan, it's appreciative. I've met you indirectly a couple times at some of the signings, and you're always so nice. And I think, it's a memory that as a kid, it's stuck in my head, and it's still with me today as I'm getting a little older myself. So I just wanted to sincerely thank you for that.
Thank you. And it's been a pleasure being with you guys tonight. Yep. And anyway, I thoroughly enjoyed my pro career. I never forget it. My teammates and I played in the Pro Bowl many times and made so many friends out there, and there's such great guys that are playing the game. People don't get to know them, and things are changing, and their players are. Back then, we were on a budget. I'd like to go to a Pro Bowl today and see what they're doing.
Yeah, probably about 5 times what your annual salary was.
Yeah. But anyway, I enjoyed being with you fellas tonight. Yeah. It's been a pleasure.
No, thanks.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Have a great evening, and hope to see you and talk to you again soon. Take care.
Sounds great.
All right.
All right.
Bye. That was a honor. Let me just tell you right now. I hope the fans.
That was an all-timer. Yeah, that was an all-timer.
You can't ask for anything better than, Bob Lilly, Mr. Cowboy. And we didn't want to get too into some of those. His stories were so good. You just kind of like, all we do is sit back and listen. I wish I had some popcorn and I'm just going down memory lane. But, I think it's something you and I have always talked about. We bring these guys in, these legends, especially with the Cowboys. We've been so rich with some of these legends, and you're getting them on the show, and the stories they tell, and it's unfiltered, and you just really understand the passion they had and really the closeness and how proud they were to be a Dallas Cowboy. And I think that's something that oozed out in him, was just the pride in putting on that jersey, star on the helmet. And to this day, he's still so involved with the Cowboys and the fans.
Yeah, I mean he's at every one of the, when somebody gets enshrined to the Ring of Honor. He'll be there this year when was it Demarcus Ware gets. So I mean he's there for every time somebody's enshrined, he's there. He's a part of it. He's down on the field with the other members of the Ring of Honor. So it's just amazing. The career that he had, the accolades that he had. And then to get to hear some of the stories, I mean, the money taped on the back of the scale. So that's a story that nobody knows. So, I mean, that's pretty damn entertaining. I need one of those scales for my house.
That's what I was going to say.
I'm losing weight here. I'm doing a good job. But I mean, to get to hear these, but also to be able to bring it, bring those stories to the fans. And everybody that joined in tonight, for them to be able to come along for that ride, it's surreal, because it's I mean, I say it all the time, man. If somebody would have told me 20 years ago, man, that I'd sit down and I'd talk with Bob Lilly, I'd be able to talk with some of the guys that we've talked to in the past.
We just had Moose Johnston,
all Moose Johnston, like all the great guests that we've had. We're doing this. We're fans, and I'm a true fan of him, and I'm just sitting there starstruck some of these times, and it's just an honor to be able to bring it to the Cowboys cave, man, and it's great.
Yeah, so I appreciate the ones who waited. We had some technical issues, but more importantly, if you're new to the channel, this is the kind of stuff we do. So make sure you hit that subscribe, like, share, let everyone know. If you are new, we have probably 20 different interviews that we've done with former NFL players, pro and college. So if you're checking in, because Bob Lilly obviously gets a lot of attention, so we get a lot more eyeballs and stuff on it. But definitely check the other stuff out. And if you are, I mean, we got a show tomorrow where we're getting back in the swing of things, because we're handling it with the Jets, and your boys are flying out. We're getting that Lear jet. I think I might have to pick Kelly up on the way. We'll make a little pit stop, but we're going to be at AT&T, and we're going to do it right with a little tailgate party. It's an informal type thing. I don't want to, have you guys thinking there's going to be some palace and some walkway. We are fans. We're going to have some chairs, and we're going to have the grill, and Fred's going to be cooking it up, and we're going to be chilling, drinking, and having a great time getting ready for the Cowboys game. So you guys have the opportunity to be a part of it. If you want, we got food. So if you want to be part of the food and help out, you can make a contribution, a small $5 to $10 contribution. And, Cuts by Jones, one of our sponsors, Fred, he's going to be feeding us right, and we'll have some drinks. But if you can bring some drinks too, it's just a very informal meeting of Cowboys Nation. Is that the best way to put it, Kelly?
That's the best way to put it, man. Because hey, listen, as excited as some of you have talked about, you're so excited to meet us. Listen, we're that excited to meet you guys. It's Cowboys Nation, man. This is one big family. So, man, I am beyond excited to get to meet you guys, because it's like getting to meet long lost brothers and sisters, and we all bonded into one big group. So we're gonna be out there. We're gonna be tailgating. Mike's gonna have some of his, his special punch.
Punch. We're gonna mix up some stuff. Get you guys drunk before the game.
And I'm gonna have I'm gonna bring me a little bottle of something there to take some shots with people. Probably some tequila if you're feeling froggy. But it's gonna be a great time. There's gonna be food, drinks. Cowboys football, home opener, New York Jets. Unfortunately, we won't get to see Aaron Rodgers, but you know what? It don't matter if it's Aaron Rodgers or Zach Wilson. Don't matter who it is. If it's Owen Wilson, we're going to beat that ass. And we're going to be back tomorrow to bring you a show. We're going to wrap up. We're going to talk about the Giants game. We're going to do that. We're going to talk about the Jets game and preview that a little bit. So, hey, we still got some things going on this week before we hit the tailgate, but we want to thank everybody for coming in. And if you're new to the show, please hit that like and subscribe button, share it with everybody, because these interviews, I mean, these are things that are going to keep on rolling. These are things that we've been bringing in. We bring in some great guests to the show, going to continue to bring great guests. We can't do this without you guys. You guys' support, you guys sharing it, like and subscribe, and all of that makes everything better. But hey, got some great things coming. The season has started, and it started off with a bang.
And more importantly, we haven't picked one yet, so we've got a couple guys in mind. But, we have our first,
wake up to win, and they don't understand nothing else. They're not all about glamour. They're not all about the women, the girl. Give me somebody that's hungry. Give me somebody that's hungry. I need somebody.
We got to find out who this hungry player of the week is for the Cowboys off that Giants win. It's going to be so hard to pick, but Eugene Lockhart is going to be in the cave, and he's going to help us figure out who it is. I got a sneaky suspicion it might be someone on the defense. What do you think, Kelly?
I think it might be somebody on the defense, but Cowboys Nation, we need your help picking it. So we will be back on the show tomorrow at 8 o'clock, our regular time, coming on live. We need you guys to think about this because we want you guys to chip in and be a part of it too. So think about it tonight before you come back tomorrow. Who was the hungry player of the game in that New York Giants? And I'm going to be honest, man, it could be the whole 53-man roster because everybody looked hungry. We looked ravenous. We look like that, maybe like one of them kids fresh out of fat camp getting to hit the all-you-can-eat buffet for the first time in a couple of months. That's how hungry that team looked as we came into New York and just dominated. How could you not be elated after seeing a performance like that, Mike?
No, it was the best. Now, the hungry player sometimes isn't the most dominant player on the field. Sometimes it's that guy that you didn't expect that came up big, that had a big game. And that's why there's going to be a couple guys that we're going to talk about, but that's why it's going to be a little bit different. So definitely tune in. But I tell you what, man, it was, I don't want, we'll be talking for 4 hours. We got a lot to say tomorrow. And I do want to say, because I have been learning it, there is an opportunity for super chats. And we actually got one of our first was Tuesday night, and I think we got one another, and we've gotten a few others in between. But I know there was a comment to activate the super chats. That should be active, and if it's not, then someone tell me. But that is active where you can make a contribution to the show. Everything that comes into the show goes towards the show. It either goes to some equipment, it goes to all the stuff that we do, and some of the guests, and some of the things that we do, giveaways and stuff like that. So it's I never want to ask for anything. I always feel uncomfortable, but if you feel it, you love it, and you want to contribute, that is an option that you guys are more than welcome to do. But really watching, subscribing, and sharing is if you want to do anything for us, that would mean the most to us. Because I think, I tell people, I don't want to be arrogant, but Kelly, God dang it, we put this stuff together. We should have more than 1,800 subscribers, right? Am I being arrogant?
I don't think that's being arrogant. That's just being truthful, guys. That's just being truthful. It's I mean, it's your boy and Mike, and he's bringing the hype. I'm closing it out.
He's bringing the heat. Hype.
So I mean, we got it every week, man. Whether it's the Cowboys game, whether it's the hype show, whether it's post game commentary. I mean, come on, man. Where else you gonna find this kind of content? And you get the interviews, and you get in the tailgate. I mean, it's the ultimate fan experience for you guys, and you guys are a part of it. You guys, we answering questions in the chat. We're reading your chat. We're responding to you guys. We're interacting with you guys. We love this. This is one big group, and this group only continues to get bigger. And I love to see it, man. Love to see it.
And the thing is, Kelly, you got to understand that when we're at this tailgate, you're saying Mike's got to get the pregame speech. If you were there once before, if you're with Kelly and I, you're going to get double the pleasure here. You're going to get both of us. I mean, this is going to be the ultimate pregame hype speech because we got the troops there to do it. And you better believe we going to be bringing the heat. You guys are going to be running into that stadium. You guys might be running on the field by the time we get done. What do you think about that, Kelly? You think so?
We're going to blow it up. We're going to blow it up. I mean, it's going to be like, if you guys are wrestling fans, it's going to be, I mean, it's going to be an epic event. This is like WrestleMania type hype that's going to get brought to you guys. So if you ain't ready for the hype, you might need to take some blood pressure medication because we're going to have everybody wanting to run through brick walls and go through TVs, just make sure that, you get hype, but, don't get too hype. We don't want anybody getting hurt because we're going to bring the hype overload.
I don't want no one looking like that Ravens player in that video I saw. We don't need any of that kind of stuff.
No, we don't need. We definitely don't need that.
I'm still curious about that one, but no, and to Falk, I am planning Dez. That's the Eagle game. I'm going with my son. I'm only going if my son can go. So if Dez is doing this again, I'm going to have a word with him when I see him because your boy spent a lot of scuttle for him to get canceled on us. So he owes me one. So yeah, absolutely professional wrestling, Jimmy. That's other stuff. So no, we're having a great time. So we'll let you guys roll because your boy's got to get up to work, but we're going to be back, like you said, tomorrow. We're going to be dropping it, Eugene Lockhart. We're going to have a good time. So make sure you guys check it out, subscribe, like, share. I hope you love the Bob Lilly. I'm just telling you, I may not be able to go to bed. I'm so amped up for it. But thank you all so much. And if we don't see you tomorrow, hopefully we see you at the tailgate. But damn it, we better see you tomorrow.
Cowboys Nation.
The Eagles get ready, because you might not like it, but you will learn to love it because we are the best thing going today. Now, can you dig it?